Take the first step today. Visit centralvirginiacounseling.com to get started. Central Virginia Counseling, where courage meets compassion.
Hey, Hokie fans! Each offseason, you don't see or hear much. So let TechSideline.com be your eyes and ears for what's really going on with the Virginia Tech Hokies. From basketball roster and staff construction to the buildup of the James Franklin era, we take you behind the scenes of the Hokies. Get exclusive recruiting deep dives, expert roster analysis, and insider updates you won't find anywhere else. Stay ahead of the game this upcoming offseason. Subscribe to TechSideline.com for $12 a month or $120 per year. TechSideline.com. All Hokies, all the time. Period.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
I will go even more get off my lawn on Tuesday in the Fast Lane because we will have more time to really go get off my lawn after Virginia had two players that were ejected for various forms of taunting this past weekend. And then Georgia, despite winning, they also had a couple of players that were, well, one player, Trey Phelps, ejected for celebrating a 2-run home run against Liberty with varying accounts of what transpired. Here is my thing. I am all for celebrations within reason. I mean, look, Miami Hurricanes throw the U up. It is what it is. But first of all, it can't be detrimental to your actual team's performance. Miami, when they were winning championships under Jimmy Johnson, fine. When Miami was struggling under Dennis Erickson, not so fine. Just draw a fine line in that particular category. So if it's costing your team because you get ejected, because they have to deal with a penalty, that's more prevalent in football and basketball with technical fouls and football with 15-yard unsportsmanlikes. But essentially, that's when it can be a real issue, especially if the game is potentially in doubt. And Trey Phelps' timing, I know 2-run home run put him ahead, put Georgia ahead, but still, I don't like the timing of that. But here's my thing. Being a winner on social media does not equal being a winner in real life. And I do wonder if there's a part of people where they're so focused on, hey, this could go viral. Hey, this could be big. You know what else could be viral? Just hitting a clutch home run, being better, continuing to get more attention, and therefore vaulting your team and yourself further along when there's less competition for eyeballs in the collegiate ranks, getting the attention of the pros, and being even better. The stuff evens out. But anyway, after my get off my lawn moment, we also have to cover the Commonwealth here in the Fast Lane. Speaking of, if you need somebody to get off of your lawn, guess what? Trost Law cannot help you. But if they've been tailgating, would not get off your bumper, and all of a sudden, boom, they rear end you, Trost Law can help you because they have been serving our Commonwealth for
not one, not two, not three, not four,
but over 4 decades since 1982. And they are here to serve you. 777-HURT and TrostLaw.com. Now, pivoting off of that, we will get into that discussion more tomorrow in the Fast Lane, including with the play-by-play voice of the Liberty Flames. We'll do a full season recap for their baseball season, which is why Nick Pierce will join us tomorrow in the Fast Lane. But today, it's time for
your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth. A look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with the JMU Dukes.
Shane Mellon with us here in the Fast Lane. Shane, great to be speaking with you. By the way, you had a fascinating latest Purple and Bold podcast that dropped with Tim Stevens of Die Hard Sports Network. It is dedicated to covering the Group of Six. Do you worry that the interest in the Group of Six will dissipate, or has it become more fervor-filled, not just because of JMU's success, but because of the rallying nature of successful Group of Six programs who want to make sure they are preserved in some level of college football hierarchy that could extend beyond college sports?
Yeah, I think I don't know if there's a simple one size fits all answer for that. Like I think at places like JMU, places like App State, places like Liberty, maybe the fervor is even greater because you're kind of almost fighting for your life every day. Like you rose to this FBS level and you want to play at that level and you want to compete with programs like Virginia, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, and whatnot. And you're trying to do that, but I think there's probably places where it's just not really allowed to compete at that level. They're frozen out financially, and so like to answer your question, I'm not sure. It is a one size fits all thing. It's a little bit different for everybody.
Shane Mettlen with us here in the Fast Lane. Shane, what have you noticed? Is the fervor still high for JMU Dukes football, even though while they made the college football playoff this past year, this is essentially a new team that's going to be kicking off at noon on the opening weekend of college football. Well, week 1 at least, against Liberty.
Yeah. The fervor really doesn't die down for JMU football, I don't think. I think, the fan base is certainly invested in the football program. There's other programs on campus maybe where like you got to keep winning, you got to keep producing to keep the interest. I think frankly, softball is not where it was, a few years ago as far as like the fan investment and things like that. But, for football, I don't see that dying down anytime soon unless, the program really drops down.
Shane_DNR Sports for Shane Mettlen. He's also at DNRonline.com to read his latest articles. The other topic of note, and this will appropriately lead into our next guest, Jerry Ratcliffe, veteran UVA reporter, is that Virginia paying JMU over $800,000 to play a game in 2028 in Scott Stadium. What does this say about the Dukes? What does this say more about Virginia, or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination of both. I think, you just kind of look at, where the money has gone here recently. Follow the money is what they say for everything. And you look at UVA's attendance for a lot of their non-conference games, even bringing in teams like Illinois from the Big Ten, let alone if they bring in a MAC program or something like that. They're selling, maybe 35,000 tickets for games like that, where it was almost a sellout when they had JMU in a couple of years ago. So I think, in that regard, you're paying JMU $800,000 for a game JMU really wants to play. So they're probably taking a little less than they would if they were going to go to, say, like a Big Ten school. And, it's a good deal financially for everybody, really, I think, because JMU wants to play this game against a team across the mountain. And UVA is going to make a bigger profit on that game, I would imagine, than they typically do for a non-conference home game.
So for Virginia, is there an added win of playing JMU, even though they lost the last time? Because I would imagine from Virginia's perspective, that roster looks a lot different than especially the one that they tried out last year, and you would think the Hoos will continue to field in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the Virginia program is in a different spot right now than they were last time these two teams played. You would think by 2028, maybe both teams improve. Maybe there's a slippage. It's hard to say with NIL and transfer portal and everything else where anybody's going to be in 2028. But yeah, I mean, I think for UVA to play JMU, there's always like a little bit of that notion that they've got a little bit more to lose because they're just going to hear about it if they lose that game. They did when JMU went there and beat them. But, I think they probably are feeling a little bit better about where their program is as far as like taking that risk when it comes to bringing JMU over to Charlottesville and feeling like they probably should win that game.
Shane_DNR Sports and DNRonline.com. With us here in the Fast Lane is Shane Mettlen. Shane, thanks for talking a little bit of JMU Dukes. We are grateful to connect with you, and we do appreciate your time.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks.
Shane Mettlen with us here in the Fast Lane, talking some JMU Dukes.
Now to UVA.
JerryRatcliffe.com founder and contributor, Jerry Ratcliffe, with us in the Fast Lane. Hootie, great to be speaking with you. A lot of nuggets for the Virginia Cavaliers. We will pick up where we left off last week. You were the one who had the biggest amount of inside info in your reporting a little over a week ago at JerryRatcliffe.com on the transition from Lars Tiffany to Kevin Cassis. Virginia introduced Cassis, shockingly, to nobody. There was not much that was given about the dismissal from Carla Williams itself. What did you pick up? Whether it's not much being given about that, how Cassis conducted himself at the press conference, or even the players he's initially been able to retain. about this transition in the early era of it?
Well, Eddie, I thought Cassis was, they say you win the press conference, and I thought he did a good job of that. He gave a very good first impression to those who were probably getting their first exposure to him, and certainly confirmed himself to the ones who knew him well. I think he did a good job. It's still, even in the breakout interviews afterward, still left a lot of questions unanswered about what specifically led to the dismissal of Lars Tiffany. I don't know that we're ever going to find out, but I know there's still people out there trying to find out, including myself. But I thought Cassis did a good job of handling questions. He didn't dodge really anything. He's done a very good job so far of retaining players. They've announced that at least 3 soon-to-be graduate students, 3 of the best players on the team, will be returning, and that they expect to retain the rest of the team that are eligible, and the recruiting class, which was a pretty decent class. So I think all in all, it was a good week for Virginia lacrosse, and they should be able to take this now and step forward. They're still going to have to put a tremendous emphasis on fundraising to raise that part of the program. They are well funded, but they're going to have to be even more so, as will most of Virginia's Olympic sports going forward.
JerryRatcliffe.com founder and contributor Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe is with us here in the Fast Lane. Hootie, pivoting from lacrosse to baseball over the weekend, Chris Pollard. First of all, how surprised were you at how vociferous he was in the criticism, not necessarily of the players themselves, John Paone and Kyle Johnson, who were ejected for different variations of verbal taunting against USM Southern Miss over the weekend? Seemed like he towed the line pretty well between criticizing their actions but still backing up his players, which is crucial, particularly in baseball.
Yeah, and I wasn't in Hattiesburg, so I don't know what may have been going on in behind the scenes. I don't know what kind of back and forth there may have been between UVA and Southern Miss players throughout the game, but I think Coach Pollard did what he had to do in terms of defending his players, but made it crystal clear that Virginia has higher standards than that, and it's not acceptable behavior by any Virginia athlete, and he's not going to have it as on his team. So I think he handled that situation with grace and was firm about it.
Overall, Hootie, how would you evaluate the first year for Chris Pollard?
I think okay, considering the circumstances. He talked after the game about he's looking forward to this off season, so they'll have a little more time to use the term surgically work on the roster. Last year they were in a 30-day rush to sign as many people as they could, any way they could. Lost a lot of players through the portal, including some key personnel that certainly would have made a difference this season had they been on Virginia's roster. Even though he brought a lot of his Duke people with him, I think it was just it took time to get these guys to blend into the team that he wanted. They still ended up getting back into the NCAA, which they missed last year, and made it to a regional final, won over 30 games, over 35 games, and he's going to lose a couple of key personnel this year, like Gracia and Didowick and a few others. But I think they believe that they're going to be able to build the roster into a contender for next year. And he's got a lot of young pitchers with a lot of promise that struggled at times throughout this year. And I think he expects them to develop greatly between now and next spring.
Hootie, pivoting from baseball to basketball. Matt Hart promoted to GM and Director of Player Development. What do you know about this hire and how it fits for Ryan Odom?
Not really any more than you do. I don't think most of the people that follow Virginia basketball are familiar with him, even though he was in the organization this past season, and he kept a very low profile and doing analytics and things like that the media is not really privy to. So I guess hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to him in the near future and find out a little bit more about what he's all about. But apparently he did well at his job leading up to this, and it'll be interesting. It'll be Virginia's first official general manager for basketball, and not really sure all that entails, but it sounds like he's got his hands full with handling the personnel and personnel development as well. And I'm sure he'll get all the support he needs from Ryan and the other staff members, but it looks like just, putting together, it took a year for them to finally name a general manager. I think maybe Griff, who's now the head coach at Pepperdine, maybe sort of served in that role unofficially last year, but this is the first guy officially to be named GM, and it'll be interesting to see how he fulfills that role.
Hootie, last one for you. Scheduling for the Virginia Cavaliers, the ACC's delegation, as they release the basketball schedule, Duke twice, Virginia Tech twice, Wake Forest 0 times. We can do a bigger expose on the scheduling. Do you like this, though, if you're Virginia, considering they all have a pretty good team, and you at least trade Wake Forest once for a chance to maybe pick up a quality win against Duke? You got 2 of those cracks.
Yeah, I've never understood the philosophy that everybody plays everybody at least once, except for every ACC team doesn't play one member of the conference at all. I don't know why you can't. I could see Virginia Tech playing twice a year, being natural rivals, and Duke, Carolina, etc. I don't know that it's necessary to play anybody else twice and not play another team at all. I think you should, as a member of a conference, you should play everybody at least once. That's my that's what bugs me about the present scheduling philosophy. I don't like that, and I don't think anybody wants to play Duke twice. But I'm sure it's good for home and home attendance. Not that Duke has any problem with that, nor Virginia very much. But at least you get 2 cracks at Duke. You don't have to play them just in Cameron, but you also get a shot at them at your own court where you have a better chance of winning. And we saw what happened at Cameron last year when you take a bunch of guys who have never played there, and even though how much you've been told about it and hear about it and see it on TV, nothing can simulate playing inside Cameron in a meaningful game. And sometimes it can be intimidating, and Virginia found out just how much. Then they were able to bounce back and play Duke a solid game on a neutral floor. So it's at least you get a chance to play them at home where you got a better chance of winning.
Hootie, we win with your analysis all the time, and fans can as well with the subscription at jerryratcliffe.com. Hootie, great to be speaking. We are grateful for your time, and thank you for joining us today in the Fast Lane.
Glad to be with you, Ed. We'll talk to you soon, brother.
Now to, just for you haters, left hand up the Commanders.
Candy Waller, Madam President, Bowie TV Sports, with us here in the Fast Lane. Seawall, great to be speaking with you. Are we on Brandon Ayuk watch until it actually gets to where he gets cut or traded?
You know what? It sure does seem like it. I was actually in the middle of posting on several outlets, Commanders fans, are you on Brandon Ayuk watch? Because that's what it definitely seems like this is. It'll be post June 1 here shortly.
We're about at that point. What's more likely, a trade for Brandon Ayuk, or that San Francisco just finally throws their hands up and he ends up getting cut?
You would think that he would just end up getting cut, but it certainly seems like the San Francisco 49ers are not trying to do that. But it does seem like maybe just not only the Commanders but others as well are just waiting for him to be released.
Candy Waller, Madam President, with us here in the Fast Lane. Seawall, how does the Myles Garrett trade, which came down earlier today from Cleveland to the Rams, shape your perception of the Washington Commanders' ability to make it through the NFC and potentially get to a Super Bowl, which ironically would be in Myles Garrett's new home stadium in LA?
I mean, not too long ago, we have learned about the Rams. They're willing to make a statement. They're willing to make moves. They won't lean too much on draft picks. They always, send out a signal that they're ready to win now. And that is exactly what they just did today. And so the Commanders do have to face the Rams. I believe it's in November. And so this will be interesting. Yet again, we know that the Rams are in a tough division, but they need to get over a few humps themselves. But this will be difficult. It continues to you see other teams grow and move things forward and move the needle on their roster. So that will be a tough game for the Washington Commanders to face.
Does the finally completed A.J. Brown to New England trade, which came down this afternoon, does that shape your perception of how you view the Commanders in the NFC East? Or have you basically operated the entire offseason like that trade was going to happen, so you already formulated your opinion, presuming that Brown would no longer be in the Commanders division?
You know what? This was one of those years because the 2027 draft is a draft that so many are really looking forward to. So many teams, it seems, that's supposed to be a special draft. So I said, if there's one team in the NFC East that may not make as much noise as in previous years, it would be the Philadelphia Eagles. Because I think the New York Giants are the team that has made the most moves this offseason in the NFC East. So while I kind of think that, the Eagles may take a little lull, if you will, or maybe, just see how they go, the Giants are really the ones to watch in the NFC East.
So we will then ask that logical follow-up question about the Giants being the ones to watch. Does this whole debate, if you will, between Abdul Carter and Jackson Dart concern you at all? Or is this the type of thing that's a storyline now, but we've got 100 days till kickoff for the first game to get this thing ironed out?
I think it's certainly a storyline. I think it's certainly something that happened in their team and within their locker room that they needed to work through. But here's one thing I also know. They all will come together to try to win. So they will set their differences and thoughts aside, for game day. So that is one thing that I'm looking at. I don't think that, the differences, the political differences will impact practice and game day. That remains to be seen, but based on what I'm gathering thus far, that still is very much the team to watch, especially considering the moves that the Giants still made today.
Candy Waller stepping into the fast lane. Of course, the move they made today was adding Juju Smith-Schuster, the wide receiver from Kansas City. That deal has now been announced. Seawall, thank you for your time today in the fast lane. We are grateful for it and for your perspective in covering the Commonwealth.
Absolutely, and I'll be talking to you guys again soon.
We will. Candy Waller with us here from Bowie TV Sports. When we return, Hill City Howlers dropped a homestand over the weekend, and then NASCAR at Nashville. Kind of a sleepy ending to that one. It took so long to get going. Trenton Worsham was awake, though, and Dylan Teft was awake for Virginia Tech's 2-game stint out in Los Angeles. All of that when we return here in the Fast Lane.
The clock is ticking. Time is running out for Virginia citizens to purchase modern sporting rifles and magazines from Big Boys Guns. Beat the July 1st deadline. Right now, the selection is robust at Big Boys Guns. ARs, AKs, and the most popular handguns will soon be banned from sale in the state of Virginia. Don't wait. Visit Big Boys Guns before the inventory is gone and not allowed to return. Shop 24/7 at BigBoysGuns.com and in store on Route 460 in Blue Ridge.
Guests are great, except unwanted guests. At Specialty Exterminating, we know the difference. Hi, I'm Sabrina Kennan with Specialty Exterminating. We help you keep unwanted pests out of your home. Now we can keep those reptiles away. Our new reptile repellent is the perfect add-on for your pest prevention service. It's pet and people safe, so it's perfect for any homeowner, especially pool owners and homes in wooded and rural areas. Call us so we can repel the reptiles. Specialty Exterminating, your pest prevention partner since 1979.
Hi, I'm Al Billingsley, a board member with CASA of Central Virginia. Children who have experienced abuse or neglect often enter foster care feeling scared, confused, and alone. That's where CASA volunteers step in. We stand behind these children to make sure that their voices are heard in court. CASA is looking for caring adults from our community to serve as volunteer advocates. And as a man, I can tell you we're especially in need more men to step up for these kids. If you're ready to make a difference, learn more at cvcasa.org.
Big news, everyone. Earthright Roofing is giving away a free roof. Go to our website to read the terms and conditions and see if you qualify for up to a $10,000 asphalt shingle roof at no charge. Must be 15 years or older roof to qualify. Come to our showroom for a double entry into the contest or go online for an entry. Enjoy, and we look forward to meeting you soon. Thank you. Visit earthrightroofing.com or call our office at 434-248-3697 for more information about the contest. We look forward to hearing from you.
What moves you? Find what moves you at Move-A-Palooza, presented by Fleet Feet Roanoke. All day, Saturday, June 20th at Green Hill Park in Salem. Cultivate your wellness hub from Virginia's premier movement experts. Experience family-friendly events to introduce you to movement and community, giving you the emotional, physical, and mental community you need with continued access to the region's premier movement experts. Find what moves you at Move-A-Palooza, presented by Fleet Feet Roanoke. All day, Saturday, June 20th at Green Hill Park in Salem.
When your mower is down, your crew is down, and downtime costs money. That's why Miller-Built Outdoor Equipment has a sharp focus on commercial turf professionals. Toro commercial mowers, professional handheld equipment, and a service department that understands urgency. If turf is your business, let's build your fleet the right way. Miller-Built Outdoor Equipment, built around your turf.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Part 1 in the books. Part 2, well, we got to dig into some hard stuff right now.
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth, a look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with the Hill City Howlers.
With Jason Prill, their play-by-play broadcaster. Jason, great to be speaking with you. Hill City Howlers, reeling a little bit after dropping the series this past weekend. What is your level of concern now as the Howlers head to the road and spend the better part of 3 of the next 4 weeks away from City Stadium?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of concern. We're dealing with a ton of injuries, and our pitching staff, they've been playing well, but a lot has been tasked of them, and that takes a toll after a while. Right now, the lineup, though, is the biggest concern. They have been struggling to hit at times, especially finding the timely hits. So there's definitely some concern. However, it's the ebbs and flows of a minor league season. They're still in right around second place in the division, so still plenty of time to try to make a run. And obviously, there is a second half of the season, and this team, there are reinforcements coming on the way at some point. So I'm not overly concerned just quite yet.
So you referenced that, especially the hitting being a concern. Flip it over to the pitching. They struck out 22 on Thursday, but they lost 4-2. Ryan Prager's had a great week. He was named Pitcher of the Week in the league this past week as well. Is there enough pitching to help the Hill City Howlers weather this storm of the offense trying to find their groove again?
Yeah, I think pitching is where this team is going to make their bread and butter going forward. You mentioned Ryan Prager. He was a recent call-up at the beginning of May to Hill City. There's also some other younger pitchers that are starting to make a bigger impact. And so there's just a lot to be excited with regarding the pitching staff. I think it was a long month and a half to open up the year with the pitching staff as they struggled to try to find their rhythm and pick and choose their spots and just kind of learn their new spot in the rotation. But now guys are starting to settle into their roles. You're seeing some more confident pitching in that 22 strikeout game. Yes, it was a bit of an anomaly in terms of the total number of strikeouts, but this is a pitching staff that can rack those up in big numbers. So I'm very excited for this pitching staff, and I'm looking forward to what they're going to be able to do over the next few months.
Jason Pro, broadcaster for the Hill City Howlers, with us here in the Fast Lane. You mentioned hitting reinforcements on the way. At what point do you expect all of that to gel for the Howlers?
Yeah, I think it's going to take some time. You're dealing with a lot of injuries. However, most of them are going to be making their way back into the lineup here sometime soon. You just had some things that were nagging with a couple of the guys, and they're beginning to ease their way back into the lineup, back into the everyday rotation. Once you start to get those guys healthy, then all of a sudden things will go back to how they were at the beginning of the year, where this team could put up runs with the best of them. So I'm not overly worried. I think it's a lot to do with injuries, why you saw a bit of a rougher series this past week. But as those injuries begin to wane and guys get back to full strength and healthy again, I think this is going to be a lineup that's a force to be reckoned with.
Jason Pro, broadcaster, Hill City Howlers, stepping into the Fast Lane. Jason, great to be speaking with you. We are grateful for your time. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Anytime, Ed.
Now to NASCAR.
Trenton Worsham of FrontStretch.com is with us here in the Fast Lane. Trenton, great to be speaking with you. How much coffee or caffeinated beverages have you had to consume between last night and today to stay awake after the weather delay and a race that wrapped up with media obligations wrapping up in the wee hours of the morning?
Yeah, and done a 5.5 hour drive back home this morning too. So I've had a few sodas, some coffee, an energy drink here or there. So and still haven't fully recovered, but it was worth it. That finish was worth it though.
It was. What is Denny Hamlin's mastery in terms of his ability to race hard, know which lines to take at the very end, and probably most importantly from a team perspective, not take out either of his Joe Gibbs Racing teammates?
Well, he raced the bottom for one to not take out those two other Joe Gibbs Racing cars. He said in his press conference that, he didn't have a car to win the race, and Christopher Bell had the best car, and Christopher Bell told me after the race he blames him because if you look himself, if you go back and look at the replay, you see him going into one of the turns, and he just kind of like goes up the lanes really high, and so Denny Hamlin gets underneath him and passes him. So Christopher Bell, if you remember, was on the prowl to hunt down Zane Smith with about 14 to go because Zane Smith was on a different strategy. So Christopher Bell would have won that race had it not been for that late caution, and Denny Hamlin, was just a beneficiary of it. So Denny Hamlin was not supposed to win that race, even on his own. To himself, he said that he wasn't supposed to. So that was a lucky one for Denny.
You mentioned a lucky one for Denny. Was Christopher Bell, in your eyes, the car to beat, or did you see something in there that maybe even Chase Briscoe could have been the one to wrestle away a victory?
Well, Briscoe said, he was down on himself too afterwards, but Bell by far had the fastest car of them. Unfortunately for Ross Chastain, he blew a brake rotor and smashed the walls, but his Trackhouse Racing car was very fast too, so we didn't get to see what Ross had for them. But yeah, after that, Bell was the class of the field. He was the one that was on the prowl, chasing down Zane Smith at the end. It was definitely a race that Christopher Bell should have won, and I know he wants back.
Trenton Worsham with us here in the Fast Lane. Trenton, I will be critical and jump on this train as well. I'm not a fan of Sunday night races during the season, and especially normally I'm not. And then when you add in a weather delay, it makes what was a great finish one that a lot of people might have actually ended up missing. Is this something NASCAR needs to address, or is this the reality of TV, much like those 3:30 starts, which could be mitigated from rain if they started a little bit earlier?
Yeah, I think it has to do with sponsors and TV slots, the Prime viewing audience, no pun intended, since it's on Prime. But people are at home on Sunday nights, with their families and everything, but they also have to work the next day. Kids may not be up for school, but, the older folks, they got to work. And it's really tough on that. And I just remember being a kid watching NASCAR growing up, and just Saturday night racing just meant something different. There was a different vibe to it. And now, with the exception of a couple of races, we don't have that anymore. And the races we do have on Sundays that make sense, such as the Southern 500 before Labor Day and the Coca-Cola 600 before Memorial Day, the other Sunday races, don't have a holiday after it. So, I prefer them to go back to Saturdays because there's just something different, in the summertime, early falls with those old Saturday night races in the 90s and 2000s.
3 of the next 5 races are on somewhat traditional ovals. Chicago and this weekend at Michigan. Pocono has some of those vibes, although there's also some of the road course vibes that are in there. We know SVG's a favored at the the traditional road course at Sonoma and the one before that at San Diego, which is the street race. Are we at the point now where we have to at least consider maybe not a threat to win because of the prowess of Toyota, but a threat to be in the top 10 at those ovals as well?
Oh, 100%. Even with, Chevrolet struggles with their bodies this season and Hendrick Motorsports, outside of Chase Elliott, SVG's sort of been carrying the banner for Chevrolet. He's been having some good results. He's been been running up front, may have gotten unlucky at a few places. But I want to see him next week at Michigan qualify on speed and then run with speed, because the past couple of weeks the qualifying has been rained out due to weather. So he's been able to have an advantageous starting position inside the top 10, but he's also been able to hold it. He hasn't slipped back, when the green flag flies, so he has speed in the car, and he's taking it to him, as we saw last night, battling Kyle Larson with his 4 fresh tires versus SVG's 2 to wrestle the lead away from him a couple of times. But I want him to put together a full weekend from qualifying well to running well to finishing well. But yes, the speed he has shown the past couple of weeks, and let's not forget Connor Zilic. They had some weird format switching up at the All-Star race. I'm sure we still don't understand, but even though it wasn't a points race, Connor Zilic did get 5th at Dover as well the week before Charlotte. So Trackhouse has been showing some speed. Ross had a fast car, like I said last night, but he lost a rotor. But yeah, SVG is becoming a force to reckon with, and don't you dare let that man start winning on ovals and road courses, or you might actually have a champion, for the New Zealander before long.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about, but as dominant as he is on the road courses, if he can get close to and at least be in that contention for wins on ovals, that takes the entire game of a championship to a different area. Trenton, you take us to a different area, or took us to Nashville. Thank you for doing that for frontstretch.com and today here in the Fast Lane.
Thank you.
Trenton Worsham with us here in the Fast Lane on W227BG Chevrolet, WVGMA, Millersburg, WMNA, Gretna, Danville, Southside.
And last but not least, or maybe least, the Virginia Tech Hokies.
Dylan Teft, TechSideline.com, with us here in the Fast Lane. Dylan, great to be speaking with you. What if I told you that UCLA would be eliminated from their own home regional as the number 1 team in the country that had not lost the series all year, and yet Virginia Tech would not be able to take advantage of that as they fell to UCLA in an elimination game Saturday night? How disappointing would that feel for Virginia Tech fans, given the effort and momentum they showed to get to this point?
Yeah, I mean, very disappointing, especially since UCLA, they lost 2 games to the number 4 seed in that regional. And, I don't think Tech losing to UCLA was the most disappointing thing. It's not the most disappointing thing in the world to compete with, with the best team in the nation. What I think was probably a little bit more disappointing was that they put themselves in that position by not having the most competitive game against Cal Poly the day before. I mean, I think everyone in the line, almost like 5 or 6 players in the lineup, struck out twice that game. Lineup struck out 14 times. I think you look back at that regional, and I think the really disappointing part of it was that Cal Poly game, especially because had they won, they had an opportunity to maybe not even see UCLA at all.
Was there an element of Virginia Tech and just how much of this was Virginia Tech's bats going cold at the wrong time?
Maybe a bit of it, especially when you look at that. Like, I don't know that they were too cold the whole regional, because 5 runs on UCLA is fine. They had a few solo shots, so it just ended up being 1 run. But especially in that Cal Poly game, that was probably the worst time for the bats to go cold, and they, I think, had been cold ever since the last 3 or 4 innings of that North Carolina game. They put together back-to-back home runs in that game, and then they didn't really do anything else. And then from that point, the offense was cold up until maybe deeper into the game against UCLA. And Chef even said something like they hadn't played in 7 days, and that he kind of attributed that Cal Poly loss a lot to that they just hadn't played in 7 days.
Dylan Teft with us here in the Fast Lane from TechSideline.com. A couple more on Virginia Tech baseball, one of which being, you mentioned not playing in 7 days. Is that compounded by the fact that they were in a region with 3 teams from the West Coast, and meanwhile Virginia Tech has to make a cross-country trip to get out there?
I mean, certainly. Like I said last week, no one on the team really expressed, that they were upset about that or that they felt like it was going to be a challenge. But it's kind of hard to believe, from the outside that you're essentially going to all 3 of these teams, backyard. Even if that Cal Poly game was technically a home game just because Tech pitched second, Cal Poly, it's in their backyard. It's like around 3 hours away. So, they have sort of a leisurely bus ride, and Tech has to go across the country. And, they can say that's not a challenge, but you really feel like that, they got the short end of the stick a little bit with the travel. But, at the end of the day, they were probably the worst 2 seeds. So you maybe understand why it had to be that way.
Dylan Teft stopping by with us here in the Fast Lane. Dylan, wrapping it all up, I know this has had kind of a negative tone, and it's because Virginia Tech went 0-2 in the UCLA Regional over the weekend. But overall, how much does that sting? Because Virginia Tech played outstanding baseball over the second half of the year and really the last 6 weeks to get to this point.
Yeah, what I keep going back to is I understand it was a disappointing finish, especially going 0-2 in regional, and not only that, but you got walked off by UCLA. You had a lead going to the bottom of the 9th inning, and that's certainly disappointing. What I keep going back to is at the end of the day, since the regional format was established, I believe 27 years ago, this is the 6th time they've been there, and you think of kind of all the obstacles they had to get to this point, and how well they played the second half of the season. I think you really come out of it, feeling like this was an overall sort of successful year. And I asked Chef that after the game, and he kind of echoed the same kind of thing. He said, we weren't just happy to be here. We're certainly disappointed that we came and we didn't, win a single game or obviously had that uncompetitive game against Cal Poly. But, he said that, just making a deal for this program, he sort of shouted out the resilience the team showed the second half of the year, and that ultimately I think for this program and sort of the expectations it has, and just sort of the recent history, making a regional alone is kind of a big deal. And then I think as time goes on, maybe the view of this season will be a little bit rosier, maybe once the disappointment of the regional how it went kind of fades away.
Dylan Teft with us here in the Fast Lane. Dylan, no disappointment in your insight. It's been fantastic for TechSideline.com, and we're grateful you decided to share some of that the last couple of weeks here in the Fast Lane.
Thanks for having me on, Ed.
Dylan Teft with us here in the Fast Lane to wrap things up today. That does it for us. Now we send it on to Freddie and Harry in progress. We're back tomorrow afternoon at 5 on the VTRN Sports app and 93.3 FM.